Okay, we are live for our next session. And this one is interesting. I like it because it's also a panel, right? I don't think we've had any panels today. We've had fireside chats. We've had a couple of those. We've had keynote presentations, but it's the first panel of the day. So I'm looking forward to this one. And it's titled, What Does Human-Centered Mean Globally? Culture and AI Beyond the West. As AI reshapes every sector, a critical question remains overlooked. Human-centered according to whom? After this session, we're going to get a clear sense of what a truly human-centered global AI future requires. Humility, cultural literacy, and evidence-based insights into the world's rich human diversity. Moderating this panel is Mario Chatzidamianos of Cultural Fusion. Yeah, did I get that right? Awesome. Round of applause for him. He's going to be moderating this panel session along with 3 others, right? And I'll leave you to call up the rest of your panel.
And
You're welcome.
talking a Greek name is always difficult.
It's fine.
So welcome everyone, and do allow me to invite our fellow panelists. First of them will be Zelno, the CEO of Intercultural Spain and co-founder and president of the Academy for Diversity and Innovation. We will have Anais Aguerre, is the founder and managing director of Culture Connect, a consultancy that specializes in unlocking collaborative and international potentials of the cultural sector. And last but not least, Waqas Ahmed is the founder of the DaVinci Network, a network of multidisciplinary thinkers and practitioners. He is a world authority on multidisciplinary thinking, and author of the global acclaimed book, The Polymath, but also a representative of the Khalil Foundation that supports multicultural diversity in the field. So please give them a round of applause, and let us get into our conversation for today. Again, thank you all for joining me, but let me start with clarifying a little bit of our terms. So what does human-centered mean globally? What do we mean by human, and what do we mean by the West? Anyone would like to answer that? It's an open question for all of us. It's not just about the panel. What defines humanity? What makes us human? I will go and take the floor and answer our uniqueness. What makes us human is what makes us different to each other, and at the same time, altogether members of a single population on this earth. At the same time, the question is, will AI become a tool for discovery or imitation? If power funds technology, how do we prevent cultural dominance from being encoded as neutrality? These are some of the questions we will be delving into today with our panelists. And I would like to start by saying that AI is scaling faster than our social, ethical, cultural, and governance systems. There is a friend of Peter's Musafiriadis, the culturalist Deepal Safter, that argues that we need to usher in the age of culture. How could centric cultural diversity in technology help us solve a raft or other big problems, like environmental and resources impact, biases, inequality, misinformation, deep fakes, identity theft, and so on and so forth. So we'll start my first question with Anna, who actually suggested that I change it a little bit, because she felt it will be a better match for her. So do allow me to start by asking Anna, I'd like you to tell me what human-centered means and for whom. How do we design AI that adapts to different communication styles across cultures and neurodiversity without stereotyping people?
Thank you for this question, and thank you for changing this question. I changed the question because the first one was really sophisticated and not so practical. And I think when we are here, and I can see guests that we are people from all over the world, and there is a tendency to think that now in the globalized world, we all think the same because we have this global mindset, we speak English, we do business globally, and sometimes we forget about the cultural differences that really matter. I'm originally from Poland, living in Spain now. What is important that my Polish passport doesn't define me and myself, and the fact that I've been living in Spain for 20 years also doesn't really define how I communicate. So, because I'm also a neurodivergent person, so there is a lot of different kinds of diversity. My identity is extremely complex. So now when I tell you, I introduce myself with different labels, you could guess what kind of preferences I have in terms of collaboration and communication, but it also cannot be true 100% because context matters. Right? So depending on when, how, where you're asking me a question and you ask me, okay, so Anna, tell me, how would you like us to collaborate? It will also depend on the power dynamics in our relationship. So again, context really matters. So having this information about different aspects of diversity is not everything, right? How is it related to AI? And nowadays, I hope, if you are working in the industry and you are training your bots, it doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT, if it's cloud, that if you are training them how they should collaborate and communicate with users, you are not telling them, okay, so if this is a German user and male over 50, use this communication style, because it will not work. And some companies are doing this, okay? It's better that the bot, if this will be a longer conversation, ask this person, how would you like to collaborate with me? How would you like to communicate with me? And give some answers, some possible options to choose from. So it's very important that we are not using different aspects and labels of diversity to stereotype, but try to train the bot to build and establish a relationship with the user. Okay? I hope it makes sense, so it will help. Don't forget about the diversity. It's complex, so it definitely matters, but also think about the context and this relational aspect of having a collaboration or communication.
And I think you did a great entrance to the main subject, because when we're talking AI and how AI models are developed right now, I need to say that we are facing a little bit of colonialism approaches. Yeah. To this end, just to give you an idea, 2.5 billion people right now cannot use AI. Why? Because it's not in their own tongue, in their own idioms. It doesn't reflect their own cultural beliefs, their own cultural understanding of the world. So Anna, I want to get us to the next question, which is totally related with what you said. As someone in contact with the latest thought leadership in intercultural understanding and a person who works in the Global South, how do you think voices of the Global South could improve bias in AI?
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should first define, if not everyone is familiar with the concept of Global South. We are talking about the majority, in fact, of the population in the world, and there are countries, like most countries in Africa, South America. In the South, not Australia. Australia not belong to the concept of Global South, and we have some countries in the Global North, in America. So. Who are also belong to the concept, and there are people who are not always have the same access to knowledge, not always define the trends in the world, and they definitely should be heard. And the best way to include their voices is to invite them. So there is a phrase by the there was the chief diversity officer of Netflix. I just forget her name. Meyer. Verna Meyer. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, she said that diversity is a party and inclusion is being invited to dance. Yeah? So let's invite the people from Global South to your organizations. So then, thanks to their knowledge about how people work, think, collaborate in the Global South, you can use their talent and their knowledge to innovate in your teams. So if you are developing projects and you want this products, if you develop products and services, ensure that the voices from Global South are being included. And talent is here, but sometimes this talent doesn't get into organizations because of prejudices, our unconscious biases, lack of understanding, lack of inclusion, and so on. So for me, it will be like inviting the voices.
That is a great assist, because with this answer I can move to Anais. And I would like to ask you, as a global consultant agency, that you work with different agencies across the globe, both governmental, non-governmental, private institutions probably. Have you ever met an expectation where you need to define what human is in this context?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in this context, I mean, looking at the topic we have at stake, I think for me there is this sense of ambivalence. We could all intuit that there are like concerns around bias, the risk of erasing diversity. I mean, that's tangible. The scale of all this technology are global. I think there is the scale, there is the fact that there is an agency within AI, which is something very new. I think the work of someone like Iyad Rawand, the director of the Human, I think it's called the Human and Machine Center at the Max Planck Institute, talks about that really well. I mean, the risk is there because also the machine is in basically impacting us. So I think there is this sort of reality of being scared about erasing what I think has been the art of what defines us as human, which is the creativity that is nurtured by this encounter, the hybridity and the exchange and those kind of cultural encounter that has been a driver for cultural, for development of humanity since ever. But I think what I see has a really interesting element, and to come back to your question, when I work across the globe, I think what we are and what we are seizing is a real momentum, because all these scary things, being bias, being non-sort of shared repartition of power, none of this is purely AI. It's just that AI is amplifying things and actually is forcing us to ask ourselves what being human is, what are intentionally the things that we want to redefine, how do we want to organize ourselves, to produce knowledge, to receive culture. And I think that's the opportunity if we want to like spin and have like a positive take on that. And I think in a way, the kind of dance with the machine today, if we seize it in the right way, is going to make us better human, in the sense that A, we can't really hide from the issues and the flaws that we have as human. We have to basically face them head on. And the other things is, I think it forces us also to go back to another things that I think define us as human, which is our critical thinking, at our ability to think for ourselves. And there is, when we prepared the session, I've mentioned this book. I think, unfortunately, it's only in French, but it's called Le Paradoxe du Tapis Roulant. It's written by Marion Carré, who is the founder of a company called Ask Mona, which has, for many years now, introduced AI in the field of museums and sort of heritage sites. And basically, the main idea she has is, if we want AI to make a better version of us and not destroy humanity, we need to move away from this notion of like all ending up in sort of a revolving belt and use AI as a treadmill. So I think the opportunity for us is actually to be intentional, to recognize that AI is forcing us to rethink the way we organize ourselves, we produce knowledge, we produce culture, but also that in order for us to save humanity in that field, we have to work and make the effort of using our intelligence, our critical thinking, and that's what differentiates us from the machine. And to just like finish on that, I think the other opportunity we have is we are in a room full of tech people. I'm not, so I'm like going to like defend or present sort of the sector that I work for and with, which is the cultural sector and the creative. And I think we are at this crossroad where we have to, in a way, reinvent all the fundamentals of the way of working and living together. And the best people to be able to imagine are the creative who day in and day out are thinking outside of the box. And in order to not all end up in the revolving door, we still need to outsmart, in a way, AI and maintain and hold on to this critical thinking that makes us truly human.
I think that it's great you mixed art with tech. And because I have the same background, I will come back with a little bit different second question. So, as we see art reflecting the ages and how their creators were feeling about what was taking place in society, reflecting upon these situations and conditions by expressing themselves through art, by making music, making sculpturing, making painting. So, in the same way, they were expressing their personal opinion about the situation. Do you think we are entering finally an era where the creators of AI will start thinking the same way? Not only building the item or the machine or the function, but enhancing it with a solution to make the tool useful and usable at the same time?
I mean, I can't pretend having the answer on this big question, but I think there is clearly an opportunity in creating more dialogues, more collaboration between the creative and this art and the tech world to actually be able to think outside of the box and not to just be led by the technology. Because technology without human thinking, without ethics, without thinking about sort of the big questions that are making us sort of like that are the makeup of our society will just mean that we will then be shaped and led by technology. So we do need this impulse, and I think the ability of the creative to think and envision what is yet unknown, unseen, unfamiliar will be a wonderful marriage for us to actually enhance this technology rather than being limited by it.
And I need to make sure that everybody in this room understands that right now AI is threatening one of the most unconditional sectors of intellectual property, and that is the creative sector. Just to give you an idea, there was an agency in Namibia, and they were managing the most famous opera singer. So suddenly, an advertising company decided to use her voice and put it on the face of a younger female artist. You realize what that means. How are we going to persuade future generations to shed the same tears, blood, and effort to get to the level if AI can do it for them? But this allows me to move to Waqas right now and bring him into the conversation by asking him again, what defines a human-centered attitude? What defines a human-centered perception of reality?
Well, I'm going to start with quite a bleak picture, okay? And then I'm going to come back to the optimism afterwards. So in terms of what it means to be human and human-centered, AI is unfortunately on its current trajectory making us lose sight of that for a couple of reasons, right? And I'll go into one of them. So if we were to ask our respective AI tool or platform, what is art, as we're on the subject of art, right? What is art? The response is likely to be hugely disproportionate for some of the reasons that have already been mentioned. Much of the training data that the current LLMs are trained on is hugely disproportionate in favor of Western cultural knowledge. I published a paper on this 2 years ago, looking at Wikipedia, one of the biggest data sets that are used by these LLMs, Wikipedia, Wikidata, and looking at how actually the majority of the artists and the artworks covered on Wikipedia and Wikidata are Western as opposed to non-Western, the vast majority of them. So if we are therefore to ask our current LLMs, and especially if our children and grandchildren will be asking their version of Siri or Alexa, what is art, it will be given a very distorted picture in the current trajectory. And the reason why that's a problem is because art is defined differently and interpreted differently according to different cultural traditions, according to different places, different geographies, different contexts. And until we understand its full complexity, having a full holistic picture of what art is and can be, we will never really understand what art is. So one of the things that AI is doing in its current form is distorting the full holistic picture of what humans are. So we will therefore, in the future, when we're trying to ask about these fundamental questions, we will lose sight of aspects of our humanity. So I think actually it will be very difficult, even more difficult than it was today, to answer the question, what is human-centered? It will become much more difficult moving forward for that reason. For another reason too, I think Anais, you touched upon this briefly, but this whole idea, I think many of us are experiencing this. We are cognitively offloading onto AI systems, right? So we are asking them to do a lot of our our tasks. Productivity is being subcontracted, but now even creativity, as we've mentioned, is being subcontracted, right? So the more we do that, it's having the reason why that's a problem is because AI systems in their current form are not designed to offer breakthrough solutions or breakthrough innovations in a way that humans have done over the history of of humanity. It can't do it because of the architecture. Many of you would know this, that actually, because of the move towards a statistical mean, the average, the likely response, you have convergent systems. Because of those convergent systems, it's very difficult for AI by itself to output any novel breakthrough idea. Okay, this is why many of us are probably frustrated with AI as a creativity tool. The way that gets addressed is actually looking at the source of creative knowledge in the first place, which has been humans, and seeing how humans can lead this process, as you've mentioned, using AI as a tool. But unless we're engaged in that process, our own brains, and I'm speaking as a neuroscientist here, our own brains will literally rot. Our capacity to think critically, but also creatively, will diminish over time, and therefore, we will not become good collaborators with AI. So if AI is bad at creativity, we become worse at creativity. What is the ultimate outcome going to be? So therefore, if we're losing our creative potential and our critical potential, we lose a key part of what it is to be human. So this is why, for these two reasons, I think we will, unless we take caution and take measure, we will be losing our understanding of humanity and human-centered, right?
I like your answer because it allows us to reflect on AI as part of an ever-evolving ecosystem, not as a virus trying to survive the ecosystem. And this brings me to the next question to you. If algorithms optimize towards similarity, as we heard from previous panelists, do we risk actually not only rotting our brains, but ending with the cultural monotony at the end of this path, instead of cultural innovation, as we were looking towards to?
Yeah, we do. We certainly risk it for the reasons I've mentioned. However, once you see, we're moving towards a world where knowledge is becoming more and more synthetic, right? So if we're going to start playing with the synthetic knowledge within a system that's not designed for creativity, as we've mentioned, then it becomes very difficult. So one of the reasons why we're all very impressed by AI systems as they currently are is because it has knowledge, human output to play with, right? To synthesize, to cross-reference, to process, and so on. But the moment that becomes a scarce commodity, not only in the non-Western global South, as we already have spoken about, but even in the West, human output, human knowledge into the system will become scarce. And when that happens, it becomes, this homogeny that you're mentioning, it becomes inevitable.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed. But because this wouldn't be a proper panel if we didn't open the floor for all of you to join us in this conversation, please, please, please raise your hand so we can reach out with a microphone. Is there a person in the room that can assist us with? Thank you. It's the lady and then it's the gentleman on the side. Oh, first the gentleman, then the lady on the third row here.
Can you raise your hand?
Lovely, lovely. So, please join us.
Thank you, everyone, for your very insightful discussions. Waqas, what you just spoke it piqued my interest in the very last part where you mentioned knowledge is very synthetic these days. I cannot, unless we say that it is not true, I think for the youngsters, for our children, for the younger generation, this kind of knowledge, the way it is weaved now by AI and easily accessible as bite-sized information, you could say, is pretty good, right? So could you expand a little bit more what you mean by synthetic knowledge? It is actually good, isn't it? And available easily. So I want to know a little bit more about that, please.
Sure. Thank you very much for your question. Okay, the gentleman on the side, the second question, and then the gentleman on the back. So please, Waqas, you'll answer.
Should I go?
Yes. When we are ready, we will pass.
Okay.
Oh, please go on.
All right, let's go. Synthetic knowledge. So yes, there are good use cases for sure, positive ones, but by and large, it's a matter of great concern because synthetic knowledge is something that humans have very little control over. It's created and synthesized for various reasons, including as campaigns for misinformation, for example, creating inappropriate content for inappropriate consumers, and importantly, it's the more that's created, the more it's fed back into the flywheel, right? And so it just continues and continues to become more and more synthetic. We are already finding it very difficult to discern at this very primitive stage of AI development. We are already finding it very difficult to discern the difference, right? It will become much more different to do so. And so the question really becomes, how do we have any kind of regulation over that? And where can we decide whether it's put for good use or negative use?
Yes, Anais?
Yeah, I'm just commenting on that because I thought it was a really interesting way to think about like the risk. I think to me the way I view that is as if you're in a closed system, and if you don't have any input coming from outside, i.e. from the human creating new ideas, then the thing kind of dries up. And the problem, if we talk about our children, I think for me, I'm amazed by the knowledge my kids have and like the thing they're like telling me. But the reality is that they're consuming that with basically putting to rest their critical thinking, the effort to formulate their own ideas. And I think if we drop that, that's when we end up in this revolving belt, and that's where we lose ourselves. So I think the danger is if we basically let AI be the producer of knowledge, we give up, I think, what is the essence of being human.
Thank you very much, both. The gentleman at the front line, then the gentleman at the back, then the lady at the back. Please, sir.
Okay, very informative. Thank you so much. To Waqas again, especially being a neuroscientist, I have heard from people before that using AI makes people less critical thinking, impacts intelligence. For me, however, I'll say it's gone reverse. I was diagnosed late with dyslexia, diagnosed late with dyspraxia, diagnosed only 2 years ago with ADHD. So for me, it's actually been very beneficial. I have book references, I have ideas I never had before. So maybe I'm just unique, but for me, it's had the opposite effect. Just want to put that out.
Yes.
A quick comment on that, maybe?
That's really interesting to hear. It will be really interesting to see moving forward, in addition to your anecdote, and I'm very pleased for you, to what extent, like people with certain conditions or neurodiversity, how they react to AI and whether it optimizes their performance, their creativity, their sense of fulfillment. We're still yet to understand that. But generally speaking, it becomes, and I can say actually as a neuroscientist, I can kind of understand why it's had that impact on you. However, with the vast majority of people, the issue is not the use of AI. The issue is the dependency on AI. So that's what I would caution for.
Okay, thank you. The gentleman at the back, then the lady in the backs, in the last row on the right. Is there anyone else that I'm not seeing raising their hands? Okay, and then it's the gentleman at the back. Lovely. Please go on, sir.
I just thought I'll let you know that for about 80 years, United Nations tried to define who is an aggressor. Any war. They've not been able to do so. So even if you ask AI any particular question, the answer has to be local. Like if you say what is the average weight of a baby, it might say 3 kilos, but it can't be 3 kilos in Africa or in some parts of India. Any question that you ask for AI, it will depend upon the data that you have, the big data that you have. And software by itself is not human-centered. Software is software. I mean, whether you write it in UK, US, Australia, China, anywhere, software remains the same. It's the data that it picks up that will depend on, that will give the answer differently. Like if I had to ask what is the average IQ globally, it could be something else from what is the average IQ in China. So different answers, same software, but depends on the data. So it's the data bias that determines the answer. That's my...
So it was a comment rather than a question.
Well, if you could contradict that, I'm happy.
Yeah, would you like to take a comment on that, anyone?
I have a quick comment, but please go ahead first.
Yeah,
Anais?
I think there is this question of like what, again, that comes back to what is available. And again, we have the like a disparity in terms of the concentration of power, where like what is digitized and it's from a certain part of the world, which language. You talked about like the LLM, where English is clearly dominant. So all that is true. That's the bias you were talking about, and how are we going to like provide the full picture? But I think that's where the ambivalence is, because we have the optic of feeling we see much more and we see the complexity of the world. But I think, again, to me, the thing is, let's not be fooled and let's keep vigilant to be aware that there is an optical view, and that if we are too lazy or if we become asleep, then that's a problem. But at the same time, there is ways. I'm dyslexic myself. I do feel AI to a degree is a useful tool. But again, I will come back to this metaphor. It's because it is used as a treadmill. It's helping me. So we have to like remain very cautious and very aware and very intentional.
Absolutely.
May I kindly ask, because we have only 5 seconds and I would like to ask for extent of 1 minute, can we get to the lady's question as well? Just the last question. Please, dear.
Thank you. So my question was, how do we see the AI regulation ethics? We are seeing agents and advancements so fast coming into play, whereas the regulations, I feel, is like a bit behind. And how do we see that impacting, this human-centric movement forward, and what your thoughts were on that? Thank you.
Would anyone like to take on that? Anna?
Just a quick one on that one. Reinforcing what Anais mentioned, which is it's really going to be a case of human agency, individual agency. So this is why this awareness is very important, because regulation is and will continue to lag behind. It cannot be relied upon to address this problem, may perhaps mitigate it to some degree. But what the general principle that I suppose we're advocating here is that, look, this is a fantastic tool. It's hugely limited. It's trained, what most of us are using is trained on general internet data, which is, the internet is a wonderful place, but it's by and large a terrible place with hugely disproportionate, a lot of misinformation, a lot of negativity. So actually, I would be skeptical of my children being educated and their perceptions being formed based on the knowledge that's been fed into the system by the internet. So I think individual agency is important.
I would happily take a continue on this question outside once we are done, because as a member of the Ethics, Legal Compliance and Social Justice of the EU EIT, I need to let you know that right now environments trying to regulate are facing offenses against them. Huge offenses, huge attacks. But it's these same people that are trying every day to set the metrics to regulate that. So it should be a little bit more supportive to the people giving that fight as well. Thank you all for having us. Give a huge round of applause for Anna Zelno.
Such an engaging panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
dear
you all.
Anna Aguerre and Waqas Ahmed. Please thank them all.
Thank you.